Hey everyone, my name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 18th of 2001. Thank God, and thank Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been sober now over 22 years, and I was 22 years old when I got sober. So I've been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous over half my life, and I want you to know it still feels fresh, and it still feels juicy, and it still feels enthusiastic. And I am a devoted, active, enthusiastic, and extremely grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I couldn't be more pleased to be here with you. My home group is the Primary Purpose Group of Calgary, Alberta. We meet on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And we are a Zoom hybrid meeting. We've got one heck of an audiovisual squad who take their work very seriously. Many of my diligent little sponsees show up early every week and set up all the video and all the audio, and we've got a really cool hybrid experience. And I only mention that because I know many of you enjoy virtual meetings and may only be able to get to virtual meetings. And I want you to know that there is a home for you on Wednesday nights at Primary Purpose Group if you would ever like to come join us. Rob K, could I ask, just because you're so good at the background stuff, could you find the Primary Purpose Group website? So anybody here know Paige from Monday night? So that's it's Paige's home group as well. And yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Rob. And my sponsor's name is Alan B from Los Angeles, California. And I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you to Steve for lining me up to talk tonight about step 2. I have spoken here several times. I think I've talked about step 11. Prior to that, I think I talked about step 9. I think I talked about making amends, and I'm here to talk about step 2 tonight. This afternoon. I say tonight, like I don't know where most of you are, whatever time it is. It's right now is what time it is. It's right now is what time it is. And just give me one moment, guys. I need to check something. Thank you. It's very hot in my place with my with this jacket on, and I had to turn the air conditioning on. It'll be a little cooler now. Thank you. I've done other Zoom talks where I found myself sweating in the middle of the talk, and then I don't know if you're like me, like anybody here like ever suffer from anxiety? Like that's a pretty normal phenomenon in AA. So I start sweating in the middle of the talk, and then I start sweating because I'm sweating. You know what I mean? Like, because oh my God, because I'm self-centered. So now everyone can see me sweating, and I'm on a call just like this. And I'm talking, I'm supposed to be, giving the talk, and I'm sweating, and now I'm sweating because I'm sweating, and I was just awful. So here's a simple solution, Kevin. Turn on the air conditioning. All right, there you go. Anyway, I'm really pleased to be here with you guys, and I'd like to talk to you. I've been asked to, and I would like to talk to you about step 2, and how step 2, what it's meant for me in my life, how I took that action in step 2, and how did I come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And what does that mean? What does that mean to be restored to sanity in the first place? Was I insane? Well, yes. Not in the way that folks in the mental institution are insane. Now, don't get me wrong. I have been in mental institutions. Okay, I have lived in mental institutions before, and I certainly suffer from mental health issues in addition to alcoholism. But I think that the insanity of alcoholism that we talk about in AA, in our book, that Dr. Silkworth and Bill Wilson line out for us, the insanity of alcoholism is very, very clear in what they're talking about in our book. And the insanity of alcoholism is not the crazy things that I do when I'm drinking. The insanity of alcoholism for me is that every time I go through that cycle where I take the first drink, trigger the physical allergy, and go through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. The insanity of alcoholism is that at some point in the future, days, weeks, months, I am going to drink again. I will drink again. I will have an insane thought. Sometimes we refer to it in AA as the mental obsession. So if you're here, and I really want to welcome anyone who's new as well. If you're here and you're relatively new to Alcoholics Anonymous, I want to tell you that not only do you never have to drink again, but you never have to feel this way again, is what I want to tell you. That I have found a way out in AA from not only just drinking, but I have found a way to feel ease and comfort in sobriety. Okay? And it's really that psychic pain that I would get every time I got sober, every time I stopped drinking for a period of abstinence. I would become restless, irritable, and discontent. I would trigger what we call in AA the spiritual malady, which is just another way of saying spiritual sickness. So I would get this spiritual sickness. On page 52 in our book, talk about the bedevilments. This is in the chapter We Agnostics, and this is what it describes me, not when I'm drinking. To my mind, this describes me when I stopped drinking. It says we were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Okay? That's me, not when I'm drinking. I drink because I feel that way. To me, alcoholism is a disease that begins when I stop drinking. And the end result of the disease of alcoholism is that I pick up a drink to solve the problem. Drinking is not the problem. Drinking is how I treat the problem. The problem is that I feel that way. I feel restless, irritable, and discontent when I become sober again, when I am forced into physical sobriety, and when I have uttered those magic words. We call it the alcoholic national anthem, swearing off, I'm never gonna drink again, okay? Everyone on this call has said those magic words, and everyone on this call has had those words have absolutely no effect on whether they were gonna drink again. That's the hallmark of what's wrong with us. You know, our book talks about the heavy drinker. The heavy drinker is someone who says those magic words, I'm never going to drink again, and they never do. They stop because what is wrong with me is not wrong with them. Heavy drinkers do not suffer from that spiritual sickness. They stop drinking, they get better. I stop drinking, I go crazy. I become physically sober and mentally sick with resentment and guilt and fear and depression. And I start telling lies, and I become this horrible, toxic, insane human being. You know, Father Martin used to say that alcoholics are easier to spot at a party when they're not drinking than when they are drinking. The alcoholic who's not drinking is the person that everyone has to walk around on eggshells around, because the slightest little thing is going to set me off. Okay, that's how I am when I'm sober. And I don't drink because I'm looking for a problem. I drank because I was looking for a solution to that problem. Okay. And if I live that way, and I know, and my psyche knows that taking a drink is going to be a remedy for that problem, eventually the action of alcohol on that problem works so extremely well. The effect of alcohol is so positive for that sickness, for that spiritual sickness, for that spiritual malady. It works so extremely well that eventually it warps my mind into an inability to distinguish the true from the false. True things look false to me, and false things look true to me. That's what Dr. Silkworth says. We have an inability to distinguish the true from the false. And if I have fallen into a region where when I drink, I trigger a physical allergy that is beyond my control, and that when I'm sober, I have a mind that will lie to me and tell me that drinking is a good idea again, then I have become absolutely powerless over alcohol. And to my mind, step one, which obviously is the precursor to step two, and that's why I'm leading up into step two. I want to set the stage of why I need step two. Step one is not an admission that I'm never going to drink again. Step one is an admission that I am absolutely guaranteed to drink again on my own. Without help of some kind, without a power greater than myself, I am going to drink again. That is the death sentence of alcoholism. And it's a terrifying thing. It's a terrifying thing that I have a mind, that my mind is going to take me back to drinking every time, guaranteed. That Kevin is trying to kill Kevin. And Kevin didn't even know why it was happening. Kevin couldn't explain it to you, but Kevin kept doing it to himself. I remember, man, the pain that I caused my family, my loved ones. I remember my dad saying to me, Kevin, if another stranger had been doing to you what you were doing to yourself, I would have gladly committed homicide and went to jail to save you. But I was the one doing it to myself. That's the insanity of alcoholism. And no matter how many times I swore off and said I was never going to do it, eventually I would always believe the lie again, that this time it was going to be different. This time it was going to be okay. Or sometimes I would start drinking with little effective thought. I would start drinking deliberately, thinking I hate my life. I hate myself. I hate AA. I'm getting drunk tonight. And I would do it deliberately. And I would burn the house down again, over and over and over. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, guys, we have found a solution for that. The solution for that was given to, it's on page 26 in our book. One of the world's great psychiatrists, Carl Jung, gives the solution to a man named Roland Hazard. Roland Hazard works one-on-one with a psychiatrist named Carl Jung, one of the great preeminent psychiatrists of the world. And in fact, when we talk about the second pertinent idea that no human being can relieve our alcoholism, I think part of that is about Carl Jung. Carl Jung worked with Roland Hazard for a full year. Can you imagine having a psychiatrist on retainer for 1 full year, helping you to understand your problems and talking about all your stuff, and you leave that psychiatrist and get drunk again almost immediately? Can you imagine how devastating that would be? So Roland Hazard goes back to Carl Jung, and we all know the story. Roland Hazard says, with tears in his eyes, Dr. Jung, you've got to help me. What's wrong with me? Dr. Jung finally tells him the truth. Roland, I haven't wanted to tell you, but I believe now that you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. He doesn't say the body of a chronic alcoholic. He says the mind of a chronic alcoholic, okay? Because that's where my problem lies. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in my mind, not my body. And in my understanding of what the mind is, it is the connection point where the soul meets our intellect. That is what my mind is, and that is where my problem exists. So Carl Jung says, Roland, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. And Roland says, there has to be some exception. What can I do? Carl Jung says, yes. He calls it a vital spiritual experience. From time to time, people such as yourselves have had vital spiritual experiences. Well, he read that in a book called The Varieties of Religious Experience, given to us by William James, okay? It's a phenomenal book. I suggest you check it out. And I'm a voracious, I am a student of anything spiritual these days, anything spiritual. And I want to learn everything I can. And I'll take from whatever book, anywhere, anytime, anyone. I just want it all, man. Just like I did when I was drinking and using dope, man. I didn't question. I didn't say, no, I won't drink whiskey. I only take vodka. Man, whatever it was, I was like a garbage disposal unit, man. I'll take anything. And I'm the same way with God today, man. Okay? I was a mad dog for alcohol, and I need to be a mad dog for this spiritual solution, because that is the solution that we have in AA. And in AA, we believe when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. And that, I believe, is something that is very unique to Alcoholics Anonymous as a treatment for alcoholism. There are other treatment modalities, there are other treatment options that people have that may say, well, no, it's all one big holistic. We need the physical and the mental and the spiritual all in combination at the same time. And some people may say, no, you got to take care of your physical self and your mental self first, and then the spiritual will come. I don't have any opinion on that. I just know when I was trying to live my life that way, I kept getting drunk over and over and over again and destroying my life. What's unique about Alcoholics Anonymous is that we are clear about what comes first. The spiritual must come first in my life. When the spiritual malady is overcome, then we straighten out mentally and physically. That's what our book says. Okay? And so where did I start to come to believe? How did that begin to happen for me? Where did I start to become convinced that there was a power available to me that could help me to overcome this alcoholic problem that I had, that could help me to stay sober, a power that could help me to see the truth? Whenever that lie of alcoholism would enter my mind, how could I see the truth or be restored to sanity in that moment? Because that's what we're really talking about. When step 2 talks about being restored to sanity, in my understanding, what we're really talking about is the ability to match the insane thought with a sane thought, to match the lie with the truth. And that's why I think God is the real solution in Alcoholics Anonymous, because God is truth. Capital T, truth. God is the power of truth that can help me to understand and see through the lie of alcoholism. That this time it's going to be different. This time it's going to be okay. The last time I drank, guys, I said to myself, I'm going to have just 6 drinks tonight. Just 6 drinks, that's all. I just need to take the edge off. I knew it wasn't going to be a drink. I never really believed I would ever have 1 drink. I only wanted to have 6. I just wanted to get that 6 drink feeling, you know? And from there, once I triggered that allergy, I was gone for days again. And I'd been to AA by that time dozens of times. I'd been in and out of treatment centers again dozens of times by that point, okay? And I always kept coming back to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll tell you why. When I was 17 years old, I was already a daily drinker. I had started drinking when I was 12 years old. I got drunk for the first time. I was drinking daily by the time I was 14. By the time I was 17, I was drinking daily and using anything I could get my hands on daily. And you can use your imagination there and you will be right about what I was using. And I went into class one day in high school, and I went into like a health class, and we had a speaker that day. And the speaker was a man from Alcoholics Anonymous who came to talk to our class about AA. And I'm here today because someone else was working their 12th step. And that man came in that day, and he didn't come in to talk to us about our drinking. He came in to talk to us about his drinking. But I'll tell you, man, his drinking sounded really familiar to me. He talked about the last night that he drank. He went out and drank a case of beer before he went out to the party. And everyone in the class was just appalled. And I just thought, man, I'd like to do a little drinking with this guy. This is my kind of guy, man. I like this. And he talked about when he couldn't get himself sober, he discovered Alcoholics Anonymous, and that he had been sober for 6 years, that he had found a way out. And I think for the first time that I really heard the magic and the music of Alcoholics Anonymous is when he relayed to us that by coming to talk to us, he wasn't trying to get us sober. He came to talk to us to keep himself sober, and that it worked for him. And that is where I began to come to believe, not in God, but I came to believe you. I came to believe that the things that you guys were telling me were true. That's where I really came to believe. In meetings that you told me that you used to drink the way that I drink and you used to feel the way that I feel, and you don't live that way anymore. You don't drink that way anymore. You don't feel that way anymore. Today, you feel a sense of ease and comfort as a result of working 12 steps that have gotten you connected to a power greater than yourself that can solve all of your problems. I heard this the other day, man. I just loved it. All my problems are in the third dimension, and all my solutions are in the fourth dimension. I love that. And I initially came to believe you. I came to believe that what you were saying was true. And so it wasn't long after that that I started attending little Alcoholics Anonymous meetings in a little town called Medicine Hat, Alberta, up here in Canada. Rob, Kay may have heard of Medicine Hat. It was in a, what was it? A Guess Who song. The Guess Who wrote about Medicine Hat one time. Anyway, that's where I got sober, and they had a little clubhouse out by the airport, and I started attending those meetings. And I started attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings before I was, yeah, that's right, Rob. Yeah, that's right. I started attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings before I was even legally old enough to drink. In Canada, 18 years old, you are legally allowed to drink. And I started going to AA when I was 17. And guys, I'm not going to tell you that I had a profound spiritual experience and got a sponsor and worked the 12 steps and never had another drink from that day till this. Okay. But I will tell you that something happened when I went to that first meeting. And I think it's something that happens for most of us. And I think it's something that I like to use to qualify with newcomers as well. Physical allergy and the mental obsession, yes, but let me ask you this. Do you feel at home when you're in Alcoholics Anonymous? Because I'll tell you what, man, from the minute I walked into that little clubhouse out by the airport, I felt at home immediately in Alcoholics Anonymous. I knew that I belonged there. What a blessing for someone who felt isolated and alone and lost and broken, to feel that sense of belonging just for a moment is everything. And so I ask newcomers, do you feel at home here? And I think, and it's not always the case. There are certainly members of AA who came to AA initially that hated Alcoholics Anonymous, but for the most part, my experience is that when I come to AA, even just in the room, around the fellowship, for the very first time, that spiritual sickness is getting nourished. It's getting nourished by you, by your spiritual awakening. It's reverberating and it's pulsating out, and I can feel it. I can feel it coming from you. I can feel the love coming from you, and I can feel the warm handshakes, and I can feel when you fill my cup of coffee and put your hand on my shoulder. You tell me it's going to be okay. You tell me you're glad I'm there. I wasn't glad I was anywhere when I got sober. I didn't want to be anywhere. I wanted to die when I got sober, man. You welcomed me in and told me you were glad I was there, and I began to feel something. I began to believe that that thing was real, that what you were telling me was real. Well, guys, I'd love to tell you that I stayed sober from that day to this, but the problem is I turned 18. And when I turned 18, man, if you were ever going to let a dog off a leash, let me tell you, man, I was just gone, man. Like, and it took a long time, but every time, guys, every time I would get into trouble, I would always come back to AA, and I would try, and you would welcome me back, and tell me again, you were glad I was there. And little by little, I began to question and ask about this God thing. I hadn't come to believe in God yet. I'd come to believe in you, and that's not the same thing. My sponsor talks about with newcomers, we can bring newcomers little handfuls of water, but our real job as sponsors is to help them find the river. Okay? And I was getting little handfuls of water from you guys every time I would go to a meeting. But the problem is you can't stay in a meeting for 24 hours a day. I've tried. I've tried. I remember one Christmas Alcathon. I was living in the psych ward at the time, and The only thing they would let me out for is AA meetings. They had, 24-hour. I don't know if they do that anywhere else, but in Calgary or Medicine Hat at that time, they had 24 hours around the clock meetings at Christmas time. So I tried to stay in an AA meeting for 24 hours a day, but it doesn't work. Eventually, you got to leave. And when I left, suddenly I didn't see the light in your eyes. I didn't feel the AA warmth anymore because I was at home alone on my own, and I was trying to stay alive on little handfuls of water that you guys were giving me when I was going to meetings. What I needed to do was find the river for myself. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay. So what happened for me? I was living in a psych ward in Medicine Hat for a long time. I'd go to these meetings, and a man in that meeting whose name was Thor, actually. Maybe he was from Sweden. I don't know. His name was Thor. And he talked to me about praying. Okay. And guys, if you're here and you're new, I want you to know that Alcoholics Anonymous is a place where we pray whether we believe in God or not. Okay. When I work with my sponsees, I have them start praying before we do step 2. I just want them to take that action. I believe that I can pray my way into faith. Okay. And in fact, I've been taught, guys, that it's okay for me to say a prayer like, God, I don't believe in you. God, I don't trust you. God, I'm alone and afraid, and I don't know what to think about this God thing. But they're telling me if I don't find a God, I'm going to drink again. And God, I want to stay sober. But I think this is all craziness, and I don't believe in you. Amen. You know what God does with a prayer like that? He smiles ear to ear, baby. He smiles ear to ear. Okay? Sister Ignatia in the Akron Hospital used to say that God's favorite sound are the words of the voice of a stranger, the voice of someone that he has not heard from before. Okay? And it doesn't matter. I can pray. I can say, God, I don't have faith in you. God, please help me to believe in you. God, please help me to trust you, God. I am scared, and I'm alone, and I'm full of fear, and I don't feel like I'm connected in Alcoholics Anonymous, God, and I want to know you better, God. Please come into my life. It doesn't matter if I believe in God or not at that point, okay? We say the prayer, I believe that I can pray my way into some type of belief in something. And so what happened to me is that fella Thor began talking to me about prayer. And, it was fine. I would pray I'd try it. I was willing to try that. And that, guys, I think can be the beginning of everything. Kid who had never prayed, never had any spiritual connection whatsoever, was willing to try praying. Okay. So I might be, I was like in the shower, like, God, are you there? No. All right. Never mind. Okay. Or I'd be driving when I was, or I'd be praying while I was driving, all that kind of stuff. And I went back and saw Thor, and he said, Kevin, how's that praying going? And I said, yeah, I tried it. I didn't really feel anything. He said, why don't you go back and try praying on your knees? And I thought, well, that's a little drastic. Like, that's weird, man. I don't want to do that. But the reality is, guys, that if I don't let prayer and spirituality take me down to my knees, alcoholism will take me down to my knees. Okay? One way or another. I never had any problem getting down on my knees to puke in a toilet on hangover mornings. Why would I have any problem getting down on my knees to talk to God in my own understanding, the power that's going to save my life? So I'll just tell you guys what happened, man. In the place called 5 North, psychiatric ward at the Medicine Hat Regional Hospital, I got down on my knees to pray for the first time. And that was my first experience of the consciousness of the presence of God in that moment. Okay? And I came to believe in that moment that there was something. Okay? When I do step 2, guys, with my sponsees, there is a question that it asks us in our book. It says, do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe there is a power greater than myself? Page 47. Okay? It doesn't even ask, do I believe that the power can solve my problem? It doesn't even ask me to believe in God. Notice the word God isn't in there. That's the first question I ask responsees. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? If a man says that he can believe or he does believe, we emphatically assure him he is on his way. And when my sponsees say they do believe, I emphatically assure them that they are on their way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. You know what a wonderfully effective spiritual structure is? It's a cathedral that I can build within myself, a place where I can go inside myself and be safe and well and at peace, regardless of the certain trials and low spots that may be going on. In the midst of the storm, I can go inside into this beautiful cathedral that was built on a cornerstone of simply being willing to believe. But here's the problem. Bill Wilson, in his story, talks about being at the Winchester Cathedral, that he had, for a brief moment, needed and wanted God, and God came. The sense of his presence, though, was soon blotted out by worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. And this is the great paradox. This is the great problem for an alcoholic of my type. It's that spiritual sickness is so strong in me when I get sober that there are actually very few people who are more cut off from that power than an alcoholic, filled with resentment and fear and guilt and shame and remorse, selfishness and self-centeredness to the extreme. Self-will run riot. I'm completely cut off from that power. If all I had to do was just come to AA and just get God, we would have a 2-step program and nobody would ever relapse. But it's not that easy. Why? Because of what Bill calls these worldly clamors within myself. The spiritual malady returns. I am blocked off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcoholism, that lie, will return again. And that is the necessity for the rest of the 12 steps. The 12 steps are really just spiritual tools. It is a spiritual toolkit that a guy like me can use to help improve the connection to God over time, okay? And it doesn't happen immediately. It doesn't happen by Thursday. No matter how hard I cram for the exam, I can't force myself into a spiritual experience by 3 p.m., okay? It takes time, but it can happen. It can happen quickly, okay? As we go through the 12 steps, we go through those spiritual actions that I can take: confession, restitution, being of service to others. These spiritual steps that I can take, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, get me connected to God. And I want to be clear about something here, guys. AA does not get me sober. A sponsor does not get me sober. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, as much as I love this book does not get me sober. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, God bless those steps, but they do not get me sober. All of those things are designed for one purpose. They get me connected to God, and God gets me sober. When we talk about coming to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity, it is the power of God. It is getting connected to the river, okay? And then going and finding someone else who's lost and dying of thirst and taking them little handfuls of water and then helping them to find the river. By doing so, man, we enter the river of life. It's the way it works. So there's a second question in We Agnostics, and this is what I do with my sponsees, okay? Step 2 for me, I mean, it's not a weeks-long process, not at all. We have 2 questions that we go through. Do you now believe? Are you even willing to believe there is a power? What does Bill say on step on page 12? He says, it was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required to make that beginning. I saw that growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend, his friend Ebby Thatcher. That's all it takes. Okay. And 98% of the time, I want you guys to know, my sponsees, when I ask them that question, do you believe, do you now believe, or are you willing to believe? Most of the time they say yes. Most of us believe in something. Our book says every man, woman, and child has a fundamental idea of God. Deep down within, every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. But like we said before, it may be obscured by pomp, by calamity, and worship of other things. Pomp is just my ego. Calamity is just trauma. Worship of other things, man. Oh, how I love to worship other things. Oh, how I love to worship people. I love to worship my relationships. I love to worship money. I love to worship many, many things. But God is either everything or else he is nothing. I can't have a percentage of God. You know what I tried to do in AA for a long time? You know that part in the book where it says God is the director and we are the actors? You know what I tried to do in AA for a long time, guys? Rather than make God the director and I'll be the actor, what I would really do is just give God a part in my play. Okay? I knew that God was part of this deal, and if I wanted to stay sober in AA, I had to get God, but I was going to give him a part in my play. Living that way, I kept getting drunk over and over and over again. Okay? It wasn't until I completely surrendered that God is either everything or else he is nothing. And that's the second question that we read. Okay? It's the second question that I go through with my sponsees. Page 53, when we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that God is either everything or else he is nothing. I cannot have a percentage of God. I cannot worship other things and have God's power in my life. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we then straighten out mentally and physically. And in my experience, in all the ways. I straighten out physically and mentally and financially and career-wise and in every way that a man would want to be straightened out, but I had to put the spiritual first. So it says here, God is either everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? And I'm going to end on this, guys, and I'd love to hear some discussion. The way that I reconcile that second question with my sponsees when I talk to them about it, because you know I'm the kind of guy, man. I'm a thinker. I'm an overthinker. Okay, I'm a self-proclaimed intellectual. I'm not saying it's accurate. I'm just saying that I like to believe. Okay, I certainly have been educated way beyond my intelligence, and I certainly love to overthink things. I'm sure none of you are this way. No, not at all, not at all. But so when I first read that, God is either everything or else he is nothing. Brother, you sisters, you take a guy like me and I'll spin around on a question like that for days. Okay, spinning around thinking, what does that mean? Everything or nothing. What is that? You know, and I want to, man, in university, I studied religious philosophy and you know, all of this garbage that was just preventing me from taking action in Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, because I would try to overthink things. And so this is how I keep it simple for myself. This is how I keep it simple for my sponsees. Simply, the power that I believe in, that I said I believed in question number one. Remember, do I now believe or am I willing to believe? That power, do you believe that that power is more powerful than alcoholism? Or do you think that your alcoholic problem is bigger than that power that you believe in? Well, I've never had a sponsee say, no, my alcoholism is bigger. But those are the two requirements in step two. I have to believe that there is something, and I have to believe that that power is bigger than my problem. Once a sponsee agrees to that, I tell them, congratulations, you're done step two. Now let's move into step three. I believe that I don't tell God how big my problems are. I tell my problems how big my God is, man. Okay? One of the cool things about AA, we get to pick our own God. We get to pick our own God in any way you want. And if you're here and you're new, I want to welcome you to Alcoholics Anonymous. My only suggestion is that you pick a really big, powerful God. That's all I'd like to share for today. Thank you very much, guys.